Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. Unfiltered commentary. And that's your truth, the real truth. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for your support. Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner from PJ Media. Good website for conservative people. I highly recommend you check it out. New research shows why Democrats should be worried about Latino vote. Now, I've always had a problem with black vote, white vote, Latino vote, women's votes. Because people, I believe, don't think the same as a group. And if you're going to take the non-white groups in the United States, the Latinos are by far the most diverse in political thought and in culture, both. The African-American or black, whatever politically correct term this week, is not as much diverse, but is getting more and more diverse politically. And that's going to spell doom for the Democratic Party. And believe me, no one's more delighted than I. Why? Because Democrats think that all Latinos think and vote the same. All blacks think and vote the same. All women think and vote the same. And that, folks, is racist, period. New research shows why Democrats should be very worried about Latino vote. A new report from Equus Labs highlighted reasons why Donald Trump's appeal to Latino voters changed the political landscape in several states and brought the GOP victories in several House races in Texas and Florida. If you remember, the Democrats took a pounding in the House of Representatives. Every single Republican incumbent won. And of the 18 swing districts / some people call them purple districts, Republicans won. What worries Democrats most is these victories by Republicans in majority Latino states came in spite of a massive effort by Democrats to get out the vote among Latino voters. The tactic worked, but not quite the way Democrats hoped. Latino voters with low involvement in politics, many of whom didn't vote in 2016 at all, shifted toward Trump. Driving the shift was Republican messaging on socialism and immigration that, contrary to Democratic expectations, played well with the young Hispanic males, especially in Texas and Florida. You betcha. Yeah, they might be first or even second generation, say, from Cuba or other Latin American countries. They know what ridiculous and overbearing governments and how evil and ridiculous they are. And if they didn't live them, their parents did or their grandparents, and they heard all about it. In places like Miami-Dade County in Florida and the Rio Grande Valley in Texas, that swing spiked to over 20 points. What's more, 7 of the 14 House seats that switched from Democratic to Republican control were majority-minority districts, many of which had large Latino populations. Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely awesome. There was a couple of districts right along the Mexican border that went for like Hillary, what was it, like plus 8 or 10, 15? And Trump won it by 15, 20. It was a 30, 40, 50-point swing. That never happens. I was delighted to see it. As we now look ahead to the midterms, it's likely that many close races will run through states and districts with large Latino populations. Democrats would do well to address their Latino vote problem if they want to keep control of the Senate and the House. I don't see the Democrats' strategy with this border nonsense. I don't see it. You think for a minute that Latino voters, legitimate, legal Latino voters, let's make that clear, if you got a legal right to vote, boy, I'll tell you, you should exercise it. I don't see the strategy allowing people to cut ahead of the line because they or their parents or their grandparents had to go through the whole process. It's expensive. It's long. It's a real pain in the behind, but it's worth it in the end because you get American citizenship. And they went through it all, and they heard their parents and grandparents talk about it. So why would they want unlawful people to come into the United States? It lowers wages for everyone, including them. I just don't get the strategy. I really don't. Except for the moron Democrats who are racist that think all Latino people think the same. That is the only thing I can think of. In Florida, Mr. Biden's campaign, congressional candidates, and Democratic super PACs set a state record for campaign spending. In the final 30 days before the general election, combined, they spent over $14 million on Spanish language radio and TV in Miami, according to Federal Election Commission reports. But by then, well over half Latino voters in Miami had cast their ballots. By contrast, the Trump campaign maintained a constant line of communication with and outreach to the Latino community that went beyond TV advertising starting 2 years before the 2020 election. And Spanish language strategy included in-person canvassing, mail, digital advertising, newspaper ads, and a network of influencers who spread disinformation and echoed Donald Trump's talking points on digital media. I don't think they spread disinformation. There might be a typo. In fact, Trump's disinformation, oh, I see, they did it on purpose. Trump's disinformation campaign resonated with many Latino voters who are middle class, hardworking, and living in the American dream. They used the disinformation campaign sarcastically because that's what Democrats said they did. And since that's the life that many Latinos aspire to achieve, GOP outreach helped bring many of them to choose the Republican this time. What about 2022? Building on past success is a necessity, and Republican Latino groups like a Libre Initiative, a Latino conservative advocacy group within the Koch political network, will continue to make progress. The advantage for Republicans isn't necessarily in numbers, but where Latino votes can be found. That's the key point. Where these Latino votes can be found. They will force the Democrats to spend even more to maintain their voter share among the Latino community, which benefits the Republicans all over the country. Yeah, they're going to have to spend money and time and resources to go after people that they once voted Democrat that don't anymore. And when are these Democrats going to figure it out? And the new Democrats, the progressives, especially, they're the worst. And the leftists, they are the most racist of any political group I've ever seen, excluding maybe the Democrats in the Deep South during Jim Crow. They just assume that all Latinos think the same. My God. That's racism by definition. Latinos, just like everybody else, they vote policy. They vote what the people running for public office are advocating for. And if you're advocating for letting in hundreds of thousands and millions of people, basically having an open border, they're not interested in that. Why aren't they interested? Not because they're Latino. It's because they're Americans, and they know it hurts the country. That's why. That's what these Democrats haven't figured out yet. They still think everybody that looks like a certain way votes a certain way. So let them think that at their own doom. And I'm hoping that's going to stop the next, if we can hang on for the next year and 8 months. I'm hoping that many former Democrats or former voting Democrats, Latinos, and blacks see that this is BS. And the Democrats today, now you talk about the Democrats 30, 40 years ago, but the Democrats today are racist and elitist. It's taken a 180 completely, and they're catching on. And good for them. Why? Because they're smart and they care about this country. And until next time, folks, goodbye and good luck.